What makes a superstar? A true superstar shines in the brightest moments, dominates on the biggest stages, and always comes through when the team needs them.
Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Back inside. Tatum spins. Lillard, long range three. He'll turn. Got off the side. Hit it. Oh, shot. Fire. Ball game.
Turns. He shoots. Yes!
Floater up and good. And
Durant. Oh, it's good.
Lucas three is a win.
What you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear.
The definition of a superstar is really ambiguous, but my definition of a superstar consists of three main things. Number one, can a player be the number one option on a contender? Number two, is he considered untouchable by his franchise? And number three, has he demonstrated consistent success and dominance in the regular season and playoffs in multiple years? Or they've been individually historically dominant in the regular season and playoffs and haven't succeeded on the same scale due to roster construction and or injuries. Essentially, is this player a playoff riser in respect to his own regular season performance, but also according to league average performance in the playoffs? But that's a subjective definition and my own opinion on what a superstar is. We can build an objective definition by using career accomplishments and statistical analysis. Some key accomplishments I'll be considering are MVPs, championship rings, finals MVPs, all-star selections, all-NBA, and all defensive teams. Frequent appearances on these rosters are crucial for identifying the current superstars in the NBA. Of course, the pinnacle of basketball success, championships, are the heaviest accomplishment when evaluating who is in the hollowed superstar tier. If you have 0 rings, CP3, contending for championships and making prolonged playoff runs can bolster your case. Elevating a team through the gauntlet of the NBA postseason is possibly the best indicator for the superstar potential of a player. The biggest problem with evaluating players using accomplishments, besides rings of course, is that the vast majority are awarded by biased and subjective voters, meaning some players are either missing accomplishments they deserved or awarded in instances where they really shouldn't have been. This innate subjectivity will always exist, which is why accomplishments themselves aren't enough to truly understand a player's value. Without career accomplishments to offer some context on the value of a player, stats can be easily misleading. However, by framing a player's statistical feats with their accomplishments on the court, counting stats such as points per game and efficiency metrics such as effective field goal percentage can help measure a player's dominance by comparing to league average efficiencies. Advanced impact statistics such as estimated plus minus, Raptor, and LeBron all individually offer a glimpse at how much a player's performance impacts their team's success. By combining all of these metrics and looking at similarities in player rankings, we can build a more comprehensive profile for every potential superstar. So, by this criteria, who currently grades out as a superstar?
What are they gonna say now? What are they gonna say now?
The greatest shooter ever finally has a finals MVP. This one accolade was what, in some people's minds, prevented Curry from being a true all-time great. What no one can deny is his status as a superstar in the NBA. A 4-time champion who won 2 rings as the number 1 option, Curry has proven time and time again that he can be relied upon in the playoffs. His performance in Game 4 vindicated the tired narratives of KD saving his legacy and established himself as one of the greatest players of all time. Curry is a perennial playoff riser, improving on his regular season efficiency every single playoffs, while being nearly 5 points more efficient than league average. The advanced stats seem to view Curry as the top player in the league, with nearly every metric ranking him in the top 10. His heroic playoff moments are among the most memorable performances in NBA playoff history, and with questions swirling about the potential of the Warriors' core being able to contend, Curry put all doubts to rest with his continued offensive brilliance, while quietly being possibly the best he's ever been defensively.
Come on, man. That's too easy.
LeBron James is still in his prime at 37 years old. It's truly unbelievable, but that's what LeBron has been his entire career. The longest prime in NBA history will continue next season as LeBron showed no signs of slowing down. LeBron has been an MVP caliber player since his 2006 season in Cleveland, and if it wasn't for the Lakers building a team full of old heads, he probably would have been in the MVP discussion yet again. Nobody currently in the league can match LeBron's sustained dominance, a 4-time champion and finals MVP with 18 All-NBA and 6 All-Defensive selections, which makes a resume very few can stack up against in the history of the NBA. Like Curry, Braun elevates his play in the playoffs, becoming hyper-efficient while averaging nearly a 30-point triple-double in his last 5 years in the playoffs. Most advanced stats don't favor 2022 Braun, likely due to the horrible team around him and their lack of success, but arguably the best all-in-one metric publicly available, EPM, ranks Braun 6th in the NBA last season. While younger LeBron might have dragged last year's pathetic roster to the playoffs, don't underestimate the middle-aged. He still performed at a superstar level nearly every single night.
Stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down, and a foul. Giannis on the alley-oop.
The most unstoppable player in the NBA, he's also one of the league's most devastating defenders. No other player in the league comes close to matching Giannis Antetokounmpo's offensive and defensive impact. The advanced stats do a great job of capturing his seismic two-way impact, ranking second in most metrics, third in EPM, and fifth in RPM. A destructive help-side defender with freakish length that can cover crazy amounts of ground, combined with Greek god athleticism, means that Giannis can guard a pick and roll and blow up an alley-oop all in one play. He is truly an immovable object and an unstoppable force. DeAndre Ayton got bounced around like a ping pong ball in the finals, but who won it? Onyeka Okongwu won it, but that's a discussion for another day. Giannis's unrelenting rim pressure and explosive transition game not only makes him one of the most dominant paint scorers in the league, but also enables him to make plays for his teammate, something he really just doesn't get enough credit for. While there has definitely been sizable jumps in his shooting skill, he still lacks even league average jump shooting efficiency. As a result, while his statistical output rises in the playoffs, his efficiencies fall as defenses pack the paint and force him to take jump shots. Despite this, besides inefficient performances against Boston in 2022 and against Toronto in 2019, Giannis is still incredibly impactful on great efficiency in the playoffs. As a Finals MVP, perennial MVP candidate, and recent champion, Giannis is poised to be one of the most terrifying players in the NBA for the next decade.
By Simmons, is this the dagger? Game, series, Toronto is won.
I understand anyone who forgets about Kawhi and superstar discussions because it feels like he just hasn't played in so long. Let's not forget, however, this man was on track for a historically dominant playoffs until his right ACL tear in Game 4 against Utah. He was averaging 30 points on basically 50, 40, 90, and insanely elite true shooting at 67.9. It's not that crazy to think that if that injury never happened, the Clippers had a real chance of being in the finals. Nothing about Kawhi's game is flashy or brash, and I feel like that causes people to overlook just how dominant he is. A 2-time champion and 2-time Finals MVP who came in the league and developed into one of the best defenders we've ever seen, evolved into a proven number one option on multiple championship contending teams. The advanced stats loved him in 2021, likely because of how he grades as a top-tier offensive talent that can play, make, and defend at an above-average level. A mid-range savant with the size and quickness to get to the rim at will, Kawhi will get the most quiet 30 points you'll ever see on a nightly basis. One of the most consistently great players we've ever seen. His cold and calculating precisions means that his game is ridiculously efficient. He's a great three-point shooter as well, and while his defense has tapered off as he's aged and accepted a larger offensive role, his playmaking and scoring improvements well outweigh the fall-off defensively. The discourse around KD was blasphemous following the Nets' embarrassing sweep to the Celtics in the first round. Picked by most odds makers as championship favorites, the Nets suffered from chemistry issues, injury luck, and Harden being tubby, which tanked their season. Despite all that was happening around the Nets last season, I still foolishly picked them to go far in the Eastern Conference playoffs. That's how much I believe in Kevin Durant. After one of the greatest individual series performances I ever watched against the Bucks in 2021, KD returned in 2022 and lit up the league. The advanced statistics don't love KD, especially because of how poor the Nets were on defense, but his own individual performances speak volumes. He averaged 29.9 points on 50% from the field, 38.3% from three, and 91% from the free throw line. His highest points per game average since 2014, and it was a couple made threes down the stretch from averaging 30 on 50, 40, 90. This man only needed to go either 5 for 5, 6 for 8, or 7 from 11 from 3 in the last game against the Pacers to cement a legendary season, and he sold. To put in context how rare this feat is, only 4 players ever have averaged 50, 40, 90 over the course of an entire season on 25 or more points per game. KD in 2014, Steph in his unanimous MVP season, Kyrie in 2020, and Larry Bird twice. Only 1 player ever has averaged 30 plus on 50, 40, 90, and it was Steph Curry in 2016. The Nets were also 36-19 with KD, 8-19 without him, meaning they were on a 53-win pace with KD playing. So yes, KD was leading the MVP race in the beginning of the season, but if he never got hurt, we may have been talking about him as a 2-time MVP.
Butler throwing haymakers at each other. Butler drives, and he's fouled. And Butler right now is exhausted with 46.
It may be controversial to have Jimmy Butler as a superstar, but as a reformed Jimmy Butler hater, you too will come to the light. He doesn't have the statistical peaks, accomplishments, or championship success like any of the guys we have discussed so far, but Jimmy checks every other box. He has proven himself as a capable number one option on a contender in multiple seasons, elevating his play to insane heights once playoff Jimmy is activated. Last season is a perfect example. After being deservedly left off the All-NBA teams, mostly because of his below-average production and time missed, Jimmy reminded the league that he is undoubtedly a superstar-level player when it really matters. Was I preying on his downfall against the Hawks? Of course, and I slandered him every chance I got. But even I came to realize that Jimmy is really something special. Similar to Kawhi, he wasn't projected to reach this level of play by anyone when he entered the league, but just worked and worked and worked for years to eventually become the type of player who can swing a series by his play alone. That Celtics series doesn't go 7 games without Jimmy buckets showing up, and the Heat definitely don't get 2 games against the Lakers without him playing to exhaustion. There's a reality where that shot goes in against the Celtics, and we're talking about Jimmy Butler dragging the Heat to the finals in 2 separate years. His ability to remain a ball hawk on defense who plays great defense means that the Heat have one of the most versatile defenses in the entire league. Jimmy Butler grades in the top 10 as most of the advanced statistics as well, likely because of his two-way impact. While the counting stats and accomplishments don't stack up to the other guys, the size of the dog in him, it puts him up here with everyone else. You may notice all these guys have something in common. Players who have all shown not only generational dominance over large stretches, but also succeeded on the highest level and have proven their value as the go-to guy and a contender in multiple years. The next group of guys are every bit as capable a player. Their definition of superstar just doesn't boast of the same playoff success as the group previously mentioned.
He's well, he's long, so I'm not gonna see. So close.
The agenda against Nikola Jokic will just never make sense to me. Do people not like watching some of the most incredible playmaking we've ever seen on a basketball court? Joker is one of one in a league full of copycats. He's entirely unique and a breath of fresh air from the repetitive play styles we see around the league. His scoring repertoire is so deep, he has hook shots, post moves, awkward mid-range jumpers, floaters, step back threes, and that's not even discussing his generational playmaking that comes with some of the most inventive passes we've ever seen made on a basketball court. Analysts try to poke holes in his MVP case by saying he's just an advanced stats guy, which is the most flimsy argument I've ever heard to discredit a player. If you're using one advanced stat to advocate for a player, that doesn't hold much weight. What if I told you Jokic ranks number 1 in every single advanced statistic I selected to evaluate these players? That's not a coincidence. That's just how dominant this man was last season. Advanced statistics are noisy though, I get it. They tend to overvalue big men and give too much credit for rebounding and rim defense, evidenced by Raptor grading Jokic as the second most impactful defender in the entire league, which we all know, that's a little bit too high. But if you just use your eyes, you can see why his impact is valued so highly by these metrics. Out of every player we've talked about so far, Jokic's supporting cast is probably the worst with Jamal Murray and PJ injured, and his team would fall off the most without him playing at a superstar level nearly every night. While the accomplishments aren't there yet, besides his 2 back-to-back MVPs, his historically dominant performances in the regular season and playoffs necessitate his placement on this list.
Bananas, outside help,
Trust the process.
What do you think about this? Next, trust the process.
Honestly, I'm scared for how dominant Joel Embiid will be next year. After another year of what he probably feels like of being robbed of the MVP trophy, I expect him to play at transcendent levels next season. After winning the scoring title in 2022, Embiid proved he can up his scoring volume while sustaining great efficiencies from the field. Besides Giannis, he was the only player in both MVP and DPOY conversations last season. The advanced statistics have the same love they have for Jokic, ranking 2nd or 3rd in most metrics and 5th or 6th in WAR and Raptor. You really feel his presence every time he's on the floor. He commands immense attention with his scoring prowess in the post and honestly everywhere else on the court. Embiid greatly improved the decision-making out of double teams, something that plagued him in that series against Toronto in 2019, and he now consistently makes better reads and passes out of those situations. It still feels unfair to watch a man that big and strong move so fluidly on the court. The game winner he hit against Toronto feels like a glitch in the Matrix when you're watching it. The caveat with Embiid is the lack of playoff success, as he hasn't advanced past the second round yet. Some untimely injuries, the craziest buzzer beater in NBA history, and Ben Simmons being his teammate can be blamed, but there's a pattern forming here. For now, Embiid undoubtedly deserves his place on this list, but next season's playoff performance will be a big indicator for how he's viewed in the league.
Finney Smith to inbound. Back to Doncic. Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
Luka Doncic is just one of them ones. He came into the NBA with a matureness and air about him that made me forget just how young he was. He plays like an old head at the park, picking you apart with his change of pace and elite shot making. He doesn't have the athleticism or pop like most guys on this list, but he still averages 32.8 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 8.5 assists on 48 from the field and 37 from 3 in the playoffs. Only one player has ever averaged 30 plus in the playoffs over the length of his career, and his name is Michael Jordan. To say Luka is in an elite company is an understatement. He improved defensively over the course of the year as well, buying into Jason Kidd's defensive schemes and using that strong frame to stonewall drives. while leveraging his size to smother smaller players. His brilliance on the league's brightest stages at such a young age is unprecedented. But the thing is, he's so good that sometimes it actually negatively affects his play. As we saw in the Clippers series in his first 2 playoff appearances and against the Warriors just a couple months ago, his nuclear scoring outputs often leave him gassed by the fourth quarter. One man can only carry an entire team against playoff defense for so long. His next step to grow as a player and get further in the playoffs is to learn how to pick his spots and when to defer to his teammates. Now that Luka has Christian Wood alongside him, and with the loss of Jalen Brunson, I'm interested to see how he can adjust his game. I have no doubts that he'll be an MVP candidate for the very least the next decade. Now we can begin to rank these players using a combination of metrics. The first overall metric we're going to look at is box score statistics, in particular the 2022 playoffs, 2022 regular season, a 5-year playoff average, and a 5-year regular season average. Each player is going to be ranked in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, effective field goal percentage, free throw percentage, true shooting percentage, points per game, assists per game, steals per game, and blocks per game. Each player is going to be ranked from 1 to 9, but the player that has the highest value is going to be awarded 9 points, and if it's a 2022 playoff stat, it'll be rated or multiplied by 1.5 times. If it's 2022 regular season, it'll be multiplied by 1.25 times, and it goes on. And the reasoning for that is because we're looking at current superstars right now, it's more valuable to have a better performance in the regular season as opposed to a 5-year average. We're not looking at the best players over the last 5 years. We're more so taking that's still part of the equation, but we want to really emphasize the most recent success. So let's get into it. Relative field goal percentage, the leader is Nikola Jokic. We're going to start with the 2022 playoffs. Again, we're ranking them 9 through 1, and then it's multiplied by 1.5 times. We're taking Jokic's 2022 playoff field goal percentage and subtracting it from the league average. He leads it, and KD's at the bottom, which is not surprising with how bad he played against the Celtics. 3-point percentage in the 2022 playoffs, of course, Steph Curry led. But surprisingly, Kawhi Leonard and LeBron are pretty much really high, especially Kawhi, who is very close to Steph Curry. The last on this list is Joel Embiid. Of course, all the big guys are at the bottom. Effective field goal percentage is just adjusting for field goal percentage, but giving more value to the 3-point shot. And Kawhi Leonard smashed the league average. Like I said, he had an historic playoff run before he got hurt. And of course, Jokic and Steph are also up there as some of the most efficient players in the league. And again, KD's at the bottom. Relative free throw percentage, just subtracting the player's free throw percentage by league average and then weighting it by 1.5 times. KD, an elite free throw shooter, but you also see Kawhi is pretty high up there as well. Last was LeBron, who surprisingly did not, he hasn't never really been that great of a free throw shooter, but he did not shoot well against the Suns. And true shooting percentage, this is just waiting for threes and free throws. The efficiency king, Jokic is up there, but you see Kawhi is in second and KD is in last, like we've seen for all the other efficiencies. Rebounds per game in the 2022 playoffs, Giannis is number 1 at 14 rebounds per game. Steph Curry's at the bottom. Assists per game, LeBron leads at 8, which is very surprising for me. I didn't expect Luka's assists. I didn't realize they were that low this season. I expected him to lead this, and Embiid is at the bottom. Steals per game, Jimmy and Kawhi are actually tied. I'm surprised to see Giannis and Embiid are at the bottom. And then in blocks per game, of course, Giannis is number 1. And the last one, I thought it would be Curry, but it's really LeBron and KD, which is very surprising. Now we're going to be talking about points per game. Now, like I was saying, Luka is a generational scorer, but in 2022, him and Giannis, they were actually tied. So that was really interesting. Jokic was just 0.7 behind, and Kawhi was at 30.4. Starting with the 2022 regular season, everything's going to be weighted 1.25 times. And relative field goal percentage, Jokic leads. And relative 3-point percentage, Kawhi Leonard leads, which is actually really surprising. I was assuming it would be Steph, but of course it wasn't as great of a year from him from 3, which is crazy because 38% is considered not as great. And effective field goal percentage, you can see Jokic on a lot of the efficiency metrics. He leads there. And in free throw percentage, of course, is Steph Curry. And true shooting, like I said, again, Nikola Jokic, extremely efficient. And in points per game, Embiid, because he won the scoring title. Rebounds, Nikola Jokic leads. Assists per game, Doncic leads. Steals per game, Jimmy and Kawhi are tied again, which is crazy. And in blocks per game, Joel Embiid just edges out Giannis Antetokounmpo. 5-year playoff averages are also weighted at 1.25 times. Field goal percentage, Giannis leads LeBron just by a bit. 3-point percentage, look, Kawhi and Steph actually tied. And effective field goal percentage, LeBron leads. Free throw percentage, Steph Curry leads. And relative true shooting, KD leads. And in points per game, Luka leads, which is really impressive for him to be up there with these guys at such a young age. Rebounds per game, Giannis is at the top with 12.54. Assists with Luka with 8.4 and Jokic right behind him. Steals per game, Kawhi at 2, which is insane. And Embiid leads everyone in blocks per game at 1.54. 5-year regular season average, which is just weighted at 1.00 times. Giannis leads in field goal percentage. Steph leads in 3-point percentage. Steph also leads in effective field goal percentage and relative free throw percentage. True shooting is led by Kevin Durant. Points per game is Giannis, which is very surprising. Rebounds per game, Giannis, and assists per game, LeBron. Steals per game is actually Jimmy Butler, and blocks per game is Joel Embiid. All that data collected, we can now start to rank them. So the leader in the 5-year regular season average and total points in terms of all the metrics we just discussed was Steph Curry. So the argument could be made that Steph Curry was among the most dominant players in the regular season over the past 5 years. Right behind him, though, was KD, and right behind him was Giannis. Rounding out the bottom was Luka and Jimmy. You know, Jimmy isn't really a regular season guy, and Luka is still coming into his own. 5-year playoff average, didn't surprise me at all, was LeBron. I was surprised to see Embiid that low on the list, but look at how high Luka is on the list, just 1.25 behind KD and Steph, and look how close Kawhi is to the top as well. 2022 regular season, also not surprised by this either, but Jokic led the entire 9 guys at 77.5 points. That's a sizable lead over everyone else, and Jimmy Butler's at the bottom. I'm going to show the 2022 playoff totals alongside the next grouping of the metrics we're using to evaluate these players, and that's going to be advanced stats and accomplishments. For advanced stats, we're looking at 2022 and a 5-year average. For accomplishments, we're also looking at 2022, but we're looking at the last 5 years and a total of those accomplishments. Advanced stats, every player is going to be ranked in EPM, Raptor, WAR, win shares, BPM, RPM, and LeBron. In accomplishments, every player is going to be ranked in MVPs, rings, Finals MVPs, All NBA, all defensive statistical titles, which could be scoring chat, for example. The multipliers, EPM is, in my opinion, the best all-in-one metric publicly available, so that's ranked the highest out of all the advanced metrics, but it's worth half as much for the 5-year average because, again, we're placing an emphasis on 2022 performance. The final MVPs and rings are also the highest thing that, in terms of accomplishments, those are multiplied by 2, and they're worth half that for the last 5. It caught me by surprise that Kawhi was number 1 out of all these guys in terms of their most recent playoffs performance, even though I have been talking about how amazing he was in that run. For him to grade out at number 1 is amazing. He's at 93, which is a sizable lead over everyone except Jokic, who's right behind him. No surprise here, Jokic leads everyone in terms of 2022 advanced stats performance with a sizable lead. And I was also surprised to see that he also led in the 5-year average advanced, and it's not as big a disparity there. Giannis is right behind him, Kawhi is right behind him, Steph is even right behind him. So I think that was good to incorporate that. For the 2022 accomplishments, I decided not to use Kawhi's 2021 accomplishments so I can reward everyone else for staying healthy. Steph, of course, leads this field with his recent run to the championship with 44 points. For the 5-year total, I was surprised to see Giannis, honestly. Now, I thought about it. He's a Finals MVP, a champion, and a 2 times MVP, and a perennial All-NBA, and even All-Defensive selection. So he leads everyone in terms of 5-year total. My favorite part, these are subjective metrics. There's going to be 3 of them. Every player is going to be rated from 1 to 10. So this isn't ranking, so don't be confused when Jimmy Butler has a 3 or something like that. I'm not saying he's a 3. Look on the left to see the rank. First one is he got that dog in him. I'm looking for killer instinct. I'm looking for an assassin's mentality. I'm looking for iconic moments where you put someone away or put a team away. Second one is that boy nice. How aesthetically pleasing is this game? How deep is the bag? How exciting and engaging is it to watch him play? And the third one is ain't nobody stopping him. Just how unstoppable does he get when he's in the zone? Does he feel unguardable? And all these are going to be weighted 1.5 times. For that dog factor, I ranked Giannis, LeBron, and Steph the highest at a 10 out of 10. They all have iconic recent playoff moments. Giannis in Game 7 or Game 6 against the Suns. LeBron in 2016 against the Warriors. And then even in the 2022 finals or 2020 finals. Steph Curry in Game 4 just a couple months ago. KD also has iconic playoff daggers, but when you put in context of the teams, it wasn't as important for his team success. Kawhi had that incredible shot against the Sixers, so he also has to be in the mix. Jimmy Butler and Luka have also shown a lot of killer instinct. And then Joel and Nikola, they both definitely have that instinct, but they just haven't shown it on the highest stages. For that boy nice, I have KD 10, the only 10. I think he's the most aesthetically pleasing player in the game's history. He's got the deepest bag. Steph, of course, you got to guard him for 35 feet. LeBron and Luka are up there. I feel like they have that change of pace. They have that bully ball. They have the step back 3 now. They're definitely on that same tier. Kawhi at 8.5. I enjoy watching him, but I know some people may feel like he's boring. Joel and Nikola are at 8.5 for different reasons. I think Joel has an insanely deep bag for a center. I love watching him play, except he flops a lot. And then Jokic is more so his playmaking. Giannis and Jimmy, they play more so bully ball, so I had them a little bit lower. And in terms of nobody stopping him, I think KD, Steph, LeBron, and Giannis are all the most unstoppable players in the game today. Luka is also up there, but I just need a little bit more pacing, a little bit more stamina from him. Kawhi's up there as well. Joel and Nikola, all of these guys are really unstoppable, but when you're talking about KD, Steph, LeBron, and Giannis, they separate themselves from everyone else. After all this data collection, we can finally get to the rankings. So with a total score of 246.27, at number 9 is Jimmy Butler. I feel like this is a perfect position for him. He's not in top 5 or top 7 conversations. He hasn't been as consistently dominant. He hasn't won a championship. But pound for pound, in a playoff series, Jimmy Butler is dangerous and could swing a series by himself. Number 8, we have Luka Doncic. Now, Luka's talent, I can see the argument for him being higher, but in terms of what he's accomplished, what he's done in the playoffs, his statistical accomplishments, I think this is a good place for him. We'll definitely see him rise much higher over the years. He's got a total score of 283.59. Number 7, we have Joel Embiid with a score of 291.1. I also think this is a great place for Embiid. Embiid is probably going to be a perennial MVP candidate. He was a scoring champion last year, but we haven't seen that playoff performance and the playoff advancement that we need from him. He still hasn't made a conference finals. Number 6, we have Kevin Durant, and this is where I feel like my metric failed to capture and the entirety of a player's performance and not overly punish an outlier performance. For example, he didn't play well in the 2022 playoffs, but he was historically dominant the last 5 years, right? So while I understand why he's at number 6 with the way I constructed the metric, I would have him higher. Number 5, we have LeBron James. I think this is a great place for him with a total score of 372.98. LeBron was the most dominant player over the last 5 years in the playoffs. He kind of underwhelmed in the 2021 playoffs, but otherwise he's played at a superstar level last year in spurts, and even at 37 or going to be 38, he still has that superstar capability in him. If they put the right team around him, we could be talking about another championship. At number 4, we have Kawhi. I think this is a perfect place for Kawhi as well. Recently led a team to the finals MVP, 2 times finals MVP, 2 times champion, and I'm betting y'all he might add another one this upcoming season. He's a great two-way player, even though he's falling off a little bit. I think it's a great place for him. At number 3, we have Giannis with 424.11 total points. Now, I personally would have Giannis higher, although I understand him being in the top 3 range. He's going to be perennial MVP candidate, perennial DPOY candidate, the most dominating and frankly intimidating player in the league at this instant. And at number 2, we have Steph with 435.23 points, and I completely agree with my metric here. I think Steph is pretty entrenched as number 2 or even number 1 in some people's minds. But his consistent dominance over the last 5 years in the regular season, the fact that he just led a team to the championship. Steph has got at least maybe half a decade of being at this level of performance. So that means, of course, number 1 is Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic is undoubtedly the most important player to his team's success over the past 2 years. So I understand why my metric has him so high. Now, is he the best player in the NBA? No. I would personally have Jokic at number 6. I would move Giannis to 1. And I would move KD to 3. The reasons for that is I think Giannis is the most singular, impactful player in the NBA because of his defensive and offensive impact. KD had an outlier performance, and we shouldn't think him too bad for a series that, every star has had a bad series. Kawhi and LeBron, I'm cool with. I think that's perfect places for them. I would move Jokic to 6. I think he's the most impactful and probably the better player out of all the players on this list who have not won or led a team to a championship yet. And then Embiid, Doncic, and Butler, I'm cool with their positioning. I think that's all pretty accurate. But otherwise, to go 6 from 9, at least in my mind, it's pretty good for my first metric. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know if you think if someone should have been up here in the superstars list that I didn't consider. Let me know what you think about the placement of the people on the list. And let me know what you think about the metrics that I used. Did I miss anything? Should I not have included anything? I'd love to hear y'all feedback. I'm going to be in the comment section. And yeah, man, thank you so much for watching. If you got all the way to the end, this was easily by far the most intensive video I've made. I did tons of research. I'll show y'all some of the Excel spreadsheets I made. This video is part 1 of a 3-part series I'm going to continue, just focusing on superstars, potential superstars, and guys who didn't exactly make the cut. So please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming videos. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good day.